The council chamber shook as another explosion ripped through the northern wall. Ambassador Relthos gripped his chair with his webbed fingers, watching as debris floated past the emergency force field. Around him, representatives from 12 species shouted in panic, their translators creating a chaos of overlapping voices. "The Vathrine have breached Sector 9, announced Councillor Mevros, his gray skin turning pale. "Our defense fleet is gone. All of it." Relthos looked at the holographic display floating above the circular table. Red markers indicated Vathrine hive ships, hundreds of them surrounding their position. Blue markers for council ships blinked out one by one. In 3 days, the insectoid monsters had destroyed what took 3,000 years to build. "We must surrender," said High Chancellor Vormak, his forearms trembling. "Perhaps they will show mercy." "The Vathrine do not know mercy," Relthos replied quietly. His people, the Meridai, had studied every species in the known galaxy. The Vathrine conquered, consumed, and moved on. There would be no negotiation. Another counselor spoke up, her crystalline body reflecting the red emergency lights. "What about the Brektar heavy ships, or the Aquilian shields?" "Destroyed," Mevros said. "The Brektar made their last stand at the Forge Worlds. The Aquilians sacrificed their entire fleet to buy us time to evacuate civilians. Time. That word hung in the air like a death sentence. They had maybe 6 hours before the Vathrine broke through the final defensive ring. Relthos had made a decision 3 hours ago. He had not told the council. They would have stopped him, arrested him, perhaps executed him on the spot. But as he watched his fellow councillors argue about impossible solutions, he knew he had done the right thing. He had sent a message on the forbidden frequency. 500 years ago, the council had discovered a yellow star system on the outer edge of the galaxy. The third planet held life, advanced life. But when the survey teams got close enough to scan the world, they fled in terror. The planet was a nightmare. Gravity so strong it would crush most council species. Weather patterns that created massive storms capable of destroying cities. Oceans filled with predators that hunted in packs. Land covered with creatures that had claws, fangs, and venom. And dominating it all was a species that called themselves humans. The council had watched them from a distance. These humans had no natural armor, no venomous bite, no thick hide. They were soft and weak, yet they stood at the top of their planet's food chain. They hunted animals 10 times their size. They survived in frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They turned their entire world into their territory. The council had made a unanimous decision. Never contact Earth. Never let humans know about the greater galaxy. They were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. The survey data was classified at the highest level. A quarantine zone was established around their system. Only 3 council members even knew humans existed. Relthos was one of them. 3 hours ago, he had broadcast a message to Earth on all human communication frequencies. A simple message in their primary languages. "We are the Galactic Council. We are under attack. We need help. These are our coordinates." He had committed the highest crime in council law. He had contacted the Deathworlders. Now, as the chamber shook again, his communication panel chirped. A private message encrypted with codes that should not exist outside council space. He opened it with shaking fingers. The message was in perfect council standard language. Message received. Fleet inbound. Estimated time of arrival 72 hours. 72 hours. They did not have 72 hours. Relthos stood up from his chair. His gills fluttered with nervous energy. "Councilors," he said, his voice cutting through the panic. "I have committed treason." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him. "I have contacted a quarantined species. I have given them our location. They are sending military assistance." High Chancellor Vormak's face went from pale gray to dark purple. "What species? The Krell? The Daxnor? The humans from Sol system?" The reaction was immediate. Half the councilors screamed. 2 fainted. Mevros lunged across the table at Relthos, but the force field between their seats stopped him. "You have doomed us all," Vormak whispered. "The humans. You called the humans. I called someone who answered," Relthos replied. The Krell did not respond. "The Daxnor are too far away. The Vathrine will kill us all in hours. But the humans said they are coming." "They will enslave us," another counselor cried. "The survey data showed they are warriors, predators. They have fought wars across their entire planet for thousands of years. And perhaps that is what we need." Relthos said quietly. We have been peaceful for so long that we forgot how to truly fight. Our weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. Our tactics prioritize minimal casualties. The Vathrine have no such limitations. I vote for immediate arrest, Vormak declared. Relthos has violated the Prime Directive. He must be detained until proper trial. But before the vote could proceed, the holographic display changed. The tactical officer's voice came through the speakers, high and panicked. Long-range sensors have detected multiple vessels entering the system. Configuration unknown. They are moving at speeds that should not be possible. The Vathrine reinforcements, someone whispered. Negative. The tactical officer replied. These ships are coming from the direction of Sol system. And counselors, there are more than we expected. Much more. Relthos accessed the sensor data on his personal display. His gills stopped moving as he stared at the numbers. The humans had not sent a small rescue force. They had sent a fleet. Dozens of massive ships, each one larger than anything the Council had ever built. How many? Vormak demanded. 47 capital ships, the tactical officer reported. Hundreds of smaller craft. And they are not decelerating. They are heading straight for the Vathrine blockade at full speed. The chamber erupted in chaos again. Some counselors were relieved. Others were terrified. Mevros was shouting about protocols and procedures, but Relthos simply watched the display. His heart's beating rapidly in his chest. A new message appeared on his panel. This one was broadcast on all Council frequencies, in all Council languages. Every ship, every station, every remaining outpost received it simultaneously. This is Captain Rivera of the Earthstar ship Indomitable, commanding the human expeditionary fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Hold your position. We are coming. The voice was female, calm and confident, as if flying into a war zone with an enemy that had destroyed entire fleets was just another day's work. Vormak stared at the holographic display showing the approaching human fleet. What have you done, Relthos? The Mirdai ambassador watched the blue markers representing human ships race toward the red Vathrine swarm. I have given us a chance, High Chancellor. The Vathrine have never faced a predator species before. Let us hope they are not prepared for what comes from a death world. The human fleet crossed into weapons range of the Vathrine blockade. Every sensor in the chamber locked onto that point in space. The Council held its collective breath. The battle for the Galactic Council was about to begin. And for the first time in 3,000 years of peace, they were about to witness what real warriors looked like. Captain Rivera stood on the bridge of the ESS Indomitable, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. Before her stretched a sight that should have been impossible. Alien ships, hundreds of them locked in combat. Explosions bloomed silently in the void like flowers of death. Lieutenant Okoro, analysis, she ordered, her voice steady despite the excitement coursing through her veins. First contact. After centuries of wondering if humanity was alone, they had their answer. And they had flown straight into a war. Okoro's fingers danced across his console, pulling up tactical data. The young officer from Lagos had been top of his class in fleet strategy. Now his education was being put to the test against enemies they did not understand. Captain, I have identified two distinct groups. The larger force appears to be the aggressors. Ship configuration suggests insectoid biology. Heavy armor, acid-based weapons, overwhelming numbers. They are designated Vathrine according to the distress call data. And the defenders? Multiple species, Captain. At least 12 different ship designs. Their weapons are sophisticated but weak. Energy output suggests they are designed for disabling rather than destroying. Their tactics are defensive, focused on minimizing casualties. Rivera leaned forward in her chair. They fight like they have never faced a real war. Agreed, Captain. The Vathrine are exploiting this. They accept heavy casualties to overwhelm defensive positions. The defenders retreat rather than risk losses. It is a mismatch. On the view screen, an elegant silver ship with organic curves was surrounded by 6 Vathrine cruisers. Its shields flickered as acid rounds splashed against the barrier. The ship was clearly trying to retreat without firing back, even as it was being torn apart. Communications. Open a channel to the Vathrine fleet, Rivera commanded. Her communications officer, a young woman named Diaz, looked uncertain. Captain, we do not have their language protocols yet. Then broadcast on all frequencies in Council standard. The distress call was in their language. Someone will understand. Rivera cleared her throat. Attention, Vathrine forces. This is Captain Rivera of the human fleet. You are attacking a civilization that called for assistance. Withdraw immediately or face consequences." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a response came through. The translator AI struggling to convert the clicking, chittering sounds into English. The voice that emerged was cold and amused. "Humans, we have heard stories of your quarantine. The Council fears you so much they hid you away like dangerous children. But you are still prey. You have simply entered a larger hunting ground. We are Vathreen. We do not withdraw. We consume the channel cut off." On the view screen, the Silver Council ship's shields finally collapsed. It began venting atmosphere. Rivera's jaw tightened. "Gunnery, target the Vathreen ships attacking that vessel. Fire Solution Alpha." "Targeting," the weapons officer confirmed. "Firing." The Indomitable's railguns spoke. Not energy weapons like the Council used, but solid slugs of depleted uranium accelerated to relativistic speeds. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds. The first round punched through a Vathreen cruiser's armor like paper, the kinetic impact tearing the ship in half. The second and third rounds disabled 2 more vessels before they even understood what had happened. The entire battlefield seemed to pause. The Vathreen had just witnessed something impossible. Weapons that ignored shields, damage that could not be regenerated, complete destruction in a single hit. On the Council flagship, Admiral Kelnos stared at his tactical display in shock. The aquatic alien's gills fluttered rapidly as he processed what had just occurred. 3 Vathreen cruisers destroyed in seconds, by weapons he did not understand. "Scan those human ships," he ordered his tactical officer. "I want to know what we are dealing with." The results came back quickly and they made no sense. "Admiral, the human vessels are using projectile weapons. Solid mass drivers. No energy signature, no plasma, just metal moving at incredible speeds. Primitive," Kelnos muttered. But primitive weapons did not cut through Vathreen armor like that. Another reading caught his attention. "Admiral, their ship hulls. The density readings are extreme, and their ships are operating in conditions that would crush our vessels. Look at the internal gravity readings." Kelnos examined the data. His blood ran cold. The human ships operated at 10 times the gravitational force of a standard Council vessel. Their crew was functioning in conditions that would kill his people in minutes. No wonder their ships were so dense, so heavy, so strong. They were built to the standards of a high-gravity world, a death world. On the Indomitable, Rivera was receiving similar information about the Council ships. Okoro had compiled a full analysis. "Captain, the Council species are fragile. Most of them evolved on low-gravity worlds with stable climates. Their ships are built for comfort, not combat. Their weapons are designed around a principle of civilized warfare that the Vathreen clearly do not share." "Show me the Vathreen tactics," Rivera ordered. Okoro brought up a tactical overview. "They use swarm tactics, overwhelmed through numbers. Their ships are biological, capable of limited regeneration. They use acid-based weapons that eat through standard shielding. And they do not fear casualties. For every Vathreen ship destroyed, they seem willing to lose 2 more to achieve their objective." Rivera studied the display. "They fight like army ants. Relentless, brutal, willing to sacrifice the individual for the colony. How do we counter that, Captain?" Rivera smiled grimly. "We show them what happens when army ants meet an anteater. Helm, bring us into the thick of the Vathreen formation. Full speed." Her helmsman hesitated. "Captain, that will put us in range of hundreds of enemy ships. That is the point. Communications, signal the fleet. Formation Delta. We are going to teach the Vathreen a lesson about predators." The human fleet, 47 capital ships and hundreds of fighters, changed course. Instead of engaging from a distance like the Council ships, they accelerated directly into the Vathreen swarm. It was a move that defied all conventional tactics. It was aggressive, dangerous, and completely unexpected. On the Vathreen Queen's command ship deep in the center of the swarm, alerts blared. The humans were not behaving like prey. They were attacking like apex predators, charging straight at the heart of the formation. "Surround them," the Queen commanded, her massive form shifting in the bioorganic throne. "They will be destroyed for their arrogance." But as the Vathreen ships closed in, expecting easy targets, they discovered their mistake. The human ships did not rely on shields alone. Their armor was meters thick, designed to withstand impacts and radiation that would vaporize Council vessels. The Vathreen acid weapons splashed against the hulls and slid off, unable to penetrate deeply enough, and the human weapons kept firing, Railguns, missiles, laser arrays designed for cutting through asteroid belts. Every shot was calculated for maximum destruction. There was no disabling fire, no warning shots. The humans fought to win. In the council chamber, Relthos watched the battle unfold on the holographic display. Beside him, High Chancellor Vormak stood in stunned silence. "They fight like demons," Vormak whispered. "They fight like survivors," Relthos corrected. "This is what it means to evolve on a world that tries to kill you every day. You learn to kill back." On the Indomitable's bridge, Okoro reported, "Captain, we have lost shields on decks 7 through 9. Hull integrity at 85%. We are taking fire from all sides. Helm, spin us 90 degrees. Give them our ventral armor. Gunnery, target their command ships, the big ones in the center." The massive battleship rotated, presenting fresh armor to the enemy fire while its guns tracked new targets. A full broadside of railgun fire lanced out, each slug carrying enough kinetic energy to crack a small moon. 4 Vathrine heavy cruisers exploded, and suddenly, the Vathrine swarm was not advancing anymore. They were hesitating. Rivera opened a channel again. "Vathrine Queen, you wanted to see what predators look like. Now you know. Withdraw, or we will show you what extinction looks like." The response was a shriek of rage, but it was followed by something else. Fear. Commander Hastings checked his armor seals one last time before the boarding pod launched. Around him, 20 Marines from the Indomitable prepared for what would be humanity's first ground combat against an alien species. The pod they occupied was essentially an armored bullet designed to punch through enemy ship hulls. "Listen up," Hastings said. His voice carried through the squad's communication network. "Intelligence says Vathrine ships are biological. That means corridors might not be corridors. Gravity might not be stable. Atmosphere will definitely be toxic to us. Keep your suits sealed and watch your 6. Lance Corporal Yuki from Tokyo checked her rifle. "What about the bugs themselves, Commander?" "Same rules as always. 2 to the center mass, 1 to the head. If it does not go down, use grenades. If grenades do not work, use the plasma torch. And if that does not work, run and call for heavy weapons." The pod shuddered as it detached from the Indomitable. Through the small viewport, Hastings could see the battle raging around them. Human ships trading fire with Vathrine cruisers, explosions lighting up the void, and ahead, their target. A Vathrine hive ship, massive and organic, its hull covered in what looked like insect carapace. On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Rivera watched the tactical display. "How many boarding teams are away?" 15 pods launched, Captain," Okoro reported. "All targeting different hive ships. If we can disable them from inside, it will break their formation. Ambitious plan, Lieutenant. Let us hope the Vathrine are not expecting it, but the Vathrine were expecting it." On the Queen's command ship, alerts flared as scanners detected the boarding pods. The Queen's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Let the prey come into our hives. They will learn what it means to face us in close combat." Hastings's pod hit the hive ship's hull at tremendous speed, its reinforced nose boring through the organic armor. The impact would have killed an unaugmented human. The Marines barely felt it through their armor's shock absorption. "Breach successful," Hastings reported. "Deploying into hostile vessel." The pod's front section exploded outward and the Marines poured through into the Vathrine ship. Hastings had expected corridors, maybe maintenance shafts. What he found was something between a tunnel and an organic cavity. The walls pulsed. The floor was soft and warm, and the smell, even filtered through his suit systems, was overwhelming. "Contact front," someone shouted. Vathrine soldiers emerged from openings in the walls. They were each the size of a large dog, covered in chitinous armor, with multiple legs and mandibles that dripped with acid. They moved fast, scuttling across walls and ceiling with equal ease. The Marines opened fire. Bullets tore through the Vathrine soldiers. Green blood sprang across the pulsing walls. But more kept coming, dozens of them, then hundreds, pouring out of every opening. "Grenade," Hastings ordered, pulling one from his belt. The explosive bounced down the corridor and detonated, shredding a cluster of Vathrine. The explosion also ruptured the wall, and suddenly atmosphere began venting. The Marines were locked in their suits, unaffected. The Vathrine soldiers were pulled toward the breach, shrieking as they were sucked into the void. "Keep moving," Hastings commanded. "We need to reach the reactor core." Back on the Council flagship, Admiral Kelnos received reports of the human boarding actions with disbelief. "They are fighting inside the hive ships? That is suicide. The Vathreen have never lost a boarding action. His tactical officer, a young Merdai named Telmara, was studying the human tactics with growing fascination. Admiral, the humans are not fighting like we do. They are not attempting to disable or capture. They are destroying everything in their path, and their armor allows them to survive in vacuum and toxic environments. Kelnos watched his display as one of the hive ships began listing, its power fluctuating. One of the human teams has reached something critical. Inside that hive ship, Hastings and his team had fought their way to what intelligence had identified as the reactor chamber. It was a vast organic space, filled with a pulsing mass of biological machinery. Tubes as thick as tree trunks carried fluids that glowed with strange energy. At the center was what looked like a massive heart, beating with a rhythm that shook the entire chamber. "Plant the charges," Hastings ordered. "We have 5 minutes before this place is crawling with their heavy units." The Marines moved quickly, attaching explosive charges to key points around the chamber. But as they worked, the temperature began to rise. The walls started closing in, the ship itself recognizing the threat and trying to crush the invaders. "Charges set," Yuki reported. "But Commander, we have a problem. The way we came in is sealed." Hastings looked at his tactical map. The ship's biology had repaired the breach, cutting off their escape route. "Find another way out, move." They ran through twisting passages, the ship's immune system attacking them now. Acid sprayed from ceiling vents. Walls tried to contract and crush them, and Vathreen soldiers poured in from every direction. "Left, left, go left," Hastings shouted, checking his suit's scanner. It showed a weak point in the hull, possibly an existing maintenance duct. They reached it just as the charges they had planted reached zero. The explosion was enormous. The hive ship's reactor detonated, the biological energy contained within tearing the vessel apart from the inside. Hastings and his team were thrown through the hull breach by the blast, tumbling into open space. "Indomitable, this is Hastings. We are EVA and need immediate pickup." Rivera's response came quickly. "Acknowledged, Commander. Retrieval shuttle en route. Well done." But one success was just the beginning. Across the battlefield, other human boarding teams were achieving similar results. Vathreen hive ships began exploding one by one, their biological reactors compromised by determined Marines fighting in conditions that would kill most Council species. The Vathreen Queen watched her fleet diminish with growing rage. These humans fought with a brutality that matched her own species. They did not fear death. They did not hesitate, and their weapons were designed for total destruction. "Deploy the bioweapon," she commanded. "Release the consuming swarm." From the Queen's ship, a cloud of microscopic organisms was released. Each one was an engineered weapon, capable of consuming both organic and inorganic matter. The cloud spread rapidly, drifting toward the human fleet like a malevolent fog. The first human frigate that encountered it began dissolving. Metal hull plating bubbled and liquefied. The ship's systems failed as wiring and circuitry were consumed. Within 90 seconds, the entire vessel was reduced to a cloud of atoms. 2 more human ships suffered the same fate before Rivera understood what was happening. "All ships, emergency scatter pattern," she ordered. "Do not let that cloud touch you." But the bioweapon was spreading, growing larger as it consumed more matter. It was heading straight for the Council station, where millions of civilians sheltered. Okoro looked at his captain. "We cannot outrun it, and conventional weapons will not stop something that small." Rivera stared at the view screen, watching the deadly cloud advance. Then she looked at her weapons panel and pressed a sequence that required her command authorization. "Gunnery, prepare Nova Protocol." The bridge fell silent. Nova Protocol was humanity's most destructive weapon. A device that generated a miniature star's worth of energy in a controlled burst. It had never been used in combat. The testing alone had sterilized an entire moon. "Captain, Nova Protocol will destabilize the orbital mechanics of any nearby planets," Okoro warned. "I know. Fire anyway." The Indomitable's main weapon charged, drawing power from every system on the ship. The lights dimmed. Life support dropped to minimum. And then the weapon fired. A lance of pure fusion energy shot across space, striking the bioweapon cloud dead center. The temperature rose to levels that matched a star's core. The microscopic organisms were vaporized instantly, along with several Vathreen ships that happened to be nearby. The bioweapon was gone, but sensors immediately showed a new problem. The energy release had pushed the Merdai homeworld slightly out of its orbit. Not much, but enough to cause catastrophic climate changes within months. Rivera closed her eyes briefly. They had won the battle, but potentially doomed the very people they came to save. On the council station, Relthos received the orbital data and felt his heart sink. Then he looked at his people, alive and safe, and made a decision. Open a channel to Captain Rivera. When the human's face appeared on his screen, Relthos spoke before she could. You saved us, Captain. We will deal with the orbital problem together. For now, accept our gratitude, Rivera nodded slowly. The Vathrine are retreating, but I do not think they are done. She was right. Long-range sensors showed the Vathrine fleet withdrawing, but behind them, something larger was approaching. Much larger. The council chamber was chaos. Ambassador Relthos stood at the center, surrounded by angry counselors from a dozen species. High Chancellor Vormak's forearms gestured wildly as he shouted accusations. You called humans without authorization. You brought weapons of mass destruction into our space, and now our homeworld's orbit is deteriorating. Arrest him. Security officers, members of the stone-skinned Brektar species, moved toward Relthos. But before they could reach him, the chamber doors opened. Captain Rivera walked in, flanked by 4 human marines in full armor. The Brektar officers stopped, unsure how to proceed. This is a closed council session, Vormak declared. You have no authority here, human. Rivera's expression was cold. You called us for help. We answered. We saved your people. And now you arrest the one person with the courage to reach out? I do not think so. The orbital damage, another counselor protested. The Merdai homeworld will become uninhabitable. And we are fixing it, Rivera replied. My engineering teams are already working on stabilization. But it will take time and cooperation. Arresting Relthos helps no one. Telmara, the young Merdai officer who had been studying human tactics, stood up from her position at the tactical station. High Chancellor, may I speak? Vormak looked annoyed but nodded. Telmara was respected despite her youth. I have been analyzing the battle data. The Vathrine force we faced was only a scouting fleet. Long-range sensors show their main armada is approaching. It is 10 times larger than what we just fought. Without the humans, we will be extinct in days. Perhaps we should be discussing alliance rather than arrest. The chamber fell silent. Vormak's skin color shifted to pale gray. 10 times larger? Confirmed, Telmara said, displaying the sensor data on the holographic projector. The image showed hundreds of red markers all heading toward council space. And there is more. The Vathrine have sent an envoy. They wish to negotiate. With us? Vormak asked. No, High Chancellor. With the humans. Rivera was not surprised. She had been expecting this. The Vathrine Queen had learned something important in their battle. Humans were not prey, and predators understood each other in ways that prey never could. The envoy arrived 12 hours later on a small Vathrine shuttle. Rivera met it in the Indomitable's docking bay, with a full squad of Marines present. The envoy was smaller than the soldiers they had fought, its carapace marked with complex patterns that suggested high rank. When it spoke, the translation came through clearly. I am High Voice Kelvix. I speak with the authority of the Queen Mother. You have impressed us, humans. We have conquered 40 species. None have fought as you do. We wish to understand you. Understanding requires communication, Rivera replied. And your queen tried to dissolve my ships with a bioweapon. That does not suggest interest in peace. The envoy's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. We test all prey. You are the first to pass the test. The queen asks, why do you fight for the council? They fear you. They quarantined you. They would have watched you die rather than risk contact. Rivera considered her response carefully. Because someone asked for help. That is enough. Mercy is weakness in the void. Mercy and weakness are not the same thing. We showed you that in battle. The envoy seemed to consider this. The Queen wishes to know the location of your homeworld, Earth. We have searched our databases but find only rumors and old council quarantine data. That information is not available, Rivera said flatly. We will find it eventually. We always do. Rivera stepped closer to the envoy, her expression hard. Then you will find a planet that breeds warriors. A world where the weather tries to kill you. Where the ocean is full of predators, where even the plants can be deadly. You will find 7 billion humans who have been preparing for this moment since we looked up at the stars. Come to Earth if you want, but know that you will face a species that has never been conquered. The envoy was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke again, and there was something different in its tone. Something that might have been respect. I will convey your words to the Queen. She will consider them. But know this, human, the main fleet comes regardless. And when it arrives, we will see if your courage matches your words. After the envoy left, Rivera returned to the bridge. Okoro was waiting with updates on the orbital stabilization effort. Our engineering teams have deployed gravity anchors around the Merdai homeworld. It is delicate work, Captain. We are essentially trying to push a planet back into place using controlled gravitational fields. Will it work? Eventually. But we need cooperation from Council engineers. They understand their planet's unique properties better than we do. Rivera nodded. Arrange a meeting. And Okoro, what is the status of our fleet? We lost 3 ships to the bioweapon. 7 more are heavily damaged. Crew casualties are at 12%. The Vathrine hit us hard. And they are bringing 10 times that force. On the Merdai homeworld, Relthos stood in the Council's decision chamber, finally free after Rivera's intervention. Around him, councilors debated humanity's role in the coming battle. The debate had raged for hours. We should accept human leadership, Telmara argued. She had been promoted after her accurate intelligence reports. Their tactics work. Our tactics have failed for 3 days straight. Accept leadership from Deathworlders? Councillor Mevro shook his head. That sets a dangerous precedent. Today they command our fleets. Tomorrow they command our governments. Tomorrow we may not exist, Relthos interjected. The main Vathrine fleet arrives in 40 hours. We must decide now. Vormak stood at the center of the chamber, his 4 arms held in a gesture of contemplation. The High Chancellor had been forced to reconsider many assumptions in recent days. I propose a compromise. A joint command structure. Human tactical doctrine, but council oversight. We learn from them while maintaining our sovereignty. It was not perfect, but it was progress. The vote passed with a narrow majority. Captain Rivera received the council's proposal and accepted. Within hours, human and council officers were working side by side in the Combined Operations Center. Telmara found herself assigned as liaison officer to the Indomitable. When she arrived aboard the human ship, the gravity nearly crushed her. She collapsed before taking 3 steps. Human crew members rushed to help, carrying her to medical bay. The doctor, a woman named Park, examined Telmara with efficient precision. Your species evolved on a low-gravity world. Our standard is 10 times that. You will need an exosuit to move around. They fitted Telmara with a powered exoskeleton that compensated for the crushing gravity. It took her an hour to learn to walk in it. Every step required concentration. And this was normal for humans. This was how they lived every day. How do you function in this? She asked Park. The doctor smiled. This is light gravity for us. Earth is heavier. We are built for high-pressure, high-gravity environments. It makes us strong, but it also makes us dense. We cannot float in water without effort. We break bones if we fall wrong, but we adapt. Telmara thought about that as she made her way to the bridge. The humans were not invincible. They just chose to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Their heavy gravity made them build stronger ships. Their dangerous world made them fierce warriors. Their history of conflict made them expert tacticians. On the bridge, Rivera was coordinating with other human captains. We have 40 hours to prepare. The Vathrine will throw everything at us. I want our ships positioned in a defensive sphere around the council station. Overlapping fields of fire. No gaps. Captain, Telmara said, still getting used to the exosuit. I have council fleet disposition. Where do you want them? Rivera studied the tactical display. Here, here, and here, supporting positions. Their shields are better than ours. They can absorb hits while we deliver damage. It was a sound strategy. Use each force's strengths to cover the other's weaknesses. Telmara felt a surge of hope. Maybe they had a chance, but then the long-range sensors updated and hope turned to ash. The Vathrine main fleet had arrived early, and it was not 10 times larger than the scouting force. It was 20 times larger, the sky filled with red markers, thousands of them. The Vathrine main fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of locusts. Thousands of ships, from small fighters to massive hive carriers, each one a biological weapon of war. On every bridge of every human and council vessel, alarms screamed. Captain Rivera stood on the Indomitable's bridge, watching the tactical display with grim determination. All ships form up. Protocol Thermopylae is now in effect. Beside her, Telmara looked confused. What is Thermopylae? An ancient human battle, Rivera explained, her eyes never leaving the display. 300 warriors held a narrow pass against an army of millions. They knew they would die, but they bought time for their people to escape. That is our mission today. We hold this gate while Council civilians evacuate. But Captain, the civilians need at least 40 hours to fully evacuate. Can we hold that long? Rivera's expression was hard. We will hold or we will die trying. Those are the only options. On the Council flagship, Admiral Kelnos was having similar thoughts. He had commanded fleets for 20 years, always following the civilized rules of engagement. Minimal force, maximum negotiation, preserve life at all costs. But those rules had gotten his people slaughtered. Now he was learning new rules from Deathworlders. All Council vessels assume positions Beta through Delta, he ordered. Overlap shields with human ships. When they fire, we absorb. When we have openings, they fire. Telmara's tactical plan is approved. The combined fleet formed a defensive sphere around Corvallis Gate, the only stable faster-than-light route to the core Council systems. If the Vathrine got through, billions would die. The gate had to be held. The Vathrine Queen's massive command ship floated at the center of her fleet, a vessel so large it had its own gravity. Inside, the Queen surveyed the battlefield with compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. The Preyform's defensive positions, high-voice Kelvix reported. They intend to delay us. Then we will show them that delay is futile, the Queen replied. Full assault, overwhelming force, crush them. The Vathrine fleet surged forward like a tidal wave of chitin and acid, thousands of ships accelerating toward a few hundred defenders. The odds were impossible. The Council species watching from evacuation transports whispered prayers to gods from a dozen worlds, and then the humans opened fire. The void lit up with railgun rounds, missiles, and laser fire. Human gunnery was precise, deadly, efficient. Every shot was calculated to maximize damage. Vathrine ships exploded by the dozens, but dozens more took their place. Shields at 70%, Okoro reported on the Indomitable. Vathrine are focusing fire on our position. Let them, Rivera said. Helm, rotate ship. Give them our starboard armor. It is fresh. The massive battleship spun on its axis, presenting undamaged sections to the enemy fire, while damaged areas were pulled back for emergency repairs. It was a tactic that required incredible skill from the helmsman and perfect coordination with the gunnery crews. On a Council destroyer nearby, Captain Vexnor of the Aquilian species watched the human ships maneuver with amazement. They are using their ship like a shield and sword at once, his tactical officer nodded. The humans operate on principles we never considered. Their ships are designed to take damage and keep fighting. A proximity alarm blared. 3 Vathrine cruisers were breaking through, heading straight for the destroyer. Evasive action, Vexnor ordered. But before his ship could move, the Indomitable shifted position, its massive bulk interposing itself between the destroyer and the attackers. The Vathrine acid rounds splashed against the Indomitable's armor, and the human ship's point defense lasers shredded the attackers. Rivera opened a communication channel. Council ship, maintain position. We have you covered. Vexnor felt something he had not expected, gratitude mixed with shame. The humans were protecting them, taking hits meant for Council vessels. These supposed monsters were laying down their lives for species that had feared them. The battle raged for 6 hours straight. No breaks, no pauses, just continuous combat. Human crews rotated through shifts, but the Vathrine seemed tireless. Their biological ships needed no rest. Commander Hastings led boarding teams again, this time targeting Vathrine supply ships. If they could disrupt the enemy's logistics, it might slow the assault. His Marines fought through corridors of living flesh, planting explosives and fighting off Vathrine soldiers that seemed to spawn endlessly. Charges planted, he reported. Extraction needed. But this time the extraction was not simple. A Brektar heavy unit was pinned down nearby, surrounded by Vathrine warriors. The stone-skinned aliens were tough but not equipped for zero-gravity combat. Detour, Hastings decided. We are getting them out. His team found the Brektar soldiers in a junction, their heavy weapons keeping the Vathrine at bay but running low on ammunition. The leader, a warrior named Grom, looked surprised when humans appeared beside him. You came for us? We fight together or we die apart, Hastings replied, his Marines forming a defensive perimeter. Move now! They fought their way out together, humans and Brektar covering each other. When Grom's weapon ran dry, a human Marine gave him a spare. When a Marine was wounded, Grom's thick arms carried him to safety. By the time they reached the extraction point, both groups had saved each other's lives multiple times. Back on the front line, the situation was deteriorating. 20 hours into the battle, the human fleet had lost 8 more ships. Council vessels were down by 15. The Vathrine kept coming, wave after wave. "We cannot hold," Admiral Kelnos admitted on the command channel. "Captain Rivera, we must consider withdrawal." "Negative," Rivera replied. "The civilians are not fully evacuated. We hold. They will overrun us. Then they will pay in blood for every meter." Telmara, coordinating between human and council forces, noticed something on her tactical display. The Vathrine were concentrating their forces on one section of the defensive sphere, trying to punch through. If they succeeded, they would split the Allied fleet in 2. "Captain Rivera, they are targeting junction point 7. If that position falls—" "I see it," Rivera interrupted. "All ships reinforce point 7. Emergency repositioning." But moving ships took time, and the Vathrine were already breaking through. A dozen hive ships crashed into the defensive line, their mass and momentum carrying them past the first layer of defense. On the council station behind the fleet, civilians watched in horror as the Vathrine breach widened. Mothers held children. The elderly prepared for death. And then something unexpected happened. A single council ship, a small frigate commanded by a young officer named Rixtal, broke formation. Instead of retreating, it accelerated directly at the Vathrine breach. The ship's captain opened a channel that broadcast to the entire fleet. "For too long we have hidden behind mercy and civilization while others fought. No more. Today we learn from our human allies. Today we fight like warriors." The frigate rammed the lead Vathrine hive ship at full speed. The impact destroyed both vessels, but it plugged the breach long enough for other ships to reposition. Captain Rixtal died in that moment, but his sacrifice inspired others. 3 more council ships charged into the breach using human tactics, accepting damage to deal damage. The Vathrine advance stalled. On the Indomitable, Rivera watched with surprise and respect. "They are learning. Okoro, update tactical doctrine. Coordinate with council forces for combined assault pattern Gamma. Captain, that pattern requires perfect timing between our ships and theirs. Then we will achieve perfect timing. Signal Admiral Kelnos. Tell him it is time to stop fighting like prey and start fighting like predators." The battle reached hour 30. Human crews were exhausted, running on stimulants and determination. Council crews were terrified but holding, and the Vathrine, for the first time in their history, were facing an enemy that simply would not break. Then long-range sensors detected something new. A massive energy signature from the Vathrine Queen's command ship. She was preparing her ultimate weapon, the same bioweapon that had dissolved human ships before. But this time, they were ready. Rivera had spent the last day working with council scientists, developing a counter. The Aquilian shield technology combined with human electromagnetic pulse weapons could potentially neutralize the bioweapon. "All ships prepare EMP barrage on my mark," Rivera ordered. "Council vessels, maximum shield power. We get one shot at this." The Vathrine Queen released her weapon, a cloud of consuming nanoorganisms that spread across space toward the Allied fleet. It looked like death itself, a gray fog that dissolved everything it touched. Fire. Every human ship discharged its EMP weapon simultaneously, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse. The council ships channeled their shield energy into a focused beam. The two effects combined, creating an energy field that the bioweapon could not penetrate. The gray cloud hit the field and stopped, unable to advance. Then the EMP pulses disrupted the nanoorganism's structure, and the entire cloud dissolved into harmless particles. On her command ship, the Vathrine Queen felt something she had never experienced: doubt. These humans and their allies had countered everything she threw at them. They adapted, learned, and refused to surrender. She opened a communication channel, broadcasting to the human fleet. "You fight well, prey that is not prey, but you cannot hold forever. My fleet is infinite." Rivera's response was immediate and cold. "Your fleet is large but not infinite, and we have held for 30 hours. We can hold for 30 more. How many ships are you willing to lose, Queen? Because we will destroy every single one before we break." Hour 42 of the siege of Corvallis Gate, the evacuation, transports carrying millions of Council Civilians finally cleared the defensive perimeter, jumping to faster-than-light safety. On the Indomitable's bridge, exhausted crew members allowed themselves a moment of relief. "Civilians are clear," Okoro reported, his voice hoarse from hours of constant communication. "All transports have successfully evacuated." Captain Rivera nodded slowly. Her crew had held for 42 hours against impossible odds. Now came the hard part. "All ships begin phased withdrawal. Pattern Omega, we are getting everyone out." But long-range sensors showed a problem. The Vathrine had positioned ships to block the retreat routes. They wanted to trap the Allied fleet, force a final confrontation, and at the center of the Vathrine formation, the Queen's massive command ship pulsed with energy. "Captain," Okoro said quietly, "we cannot withdraw with those ships blocking us. We will lose half our fleet trying to break through." Rivera studied the tactical display. He was right. The Vathrine had learned from the battle, adapted their tactics. Now they were using human strategies against them, surrounding, overwhelming, accepting casualties to achieve objectives. "Then we change the game," Rivera decided. "Get me Commander Hastings." Hastings appeared on the communication screen, his armor scorched and damaged from hours of boarding actions. "Captain, I need you to do something impossible. That command ship, the Queen's vessel, I need you to get inside and disable its power core. If we take out their command and control, the fleet will fracture." Hastings looked at the tactical plot showing the Queen's ship. It was surrounded by hundreds of Vathrine vessels, protected by layers of defenses. Getting to it was suicide. Getting inside was impossible. And getting out was fantasy. "Understood, Captain. I will need volunteers only. This is a one-way trip. You will have your extraction, Commander. You have my word." Hastings assembled a team of 20 Marines, everyone a volunteer. But when he arrived at the hangar bay, he found he was not alone. Grom, the Brektar warrior his team had saved earlier, stood waiting with 10 of his soldiers. "You saved us?" Grom said simply. "Now we fight beside you. That is the human way, yes? Stand together." Hastings felt a surge of respect. "That is the human way. Welcome aboard." The boarding pod launched, supported by a desperate fighter attack that drew Vathrine attention away from the small craft. It punched through the Queen's ship hull in a section where human intelligence suggested weak points. The combined human and Brektar team deployed into chaos. The interior was different from other Vathrine ships. This was not just a vessel, but a living palace. Organic architecture mixed with deliberate design, and everywhere elite Vathrine guards larger and more dangerous than standard soldiers. "Move fast, hit hard," Hastings ordered. His team advanced, humans providing speed and precision, Brektar providing raw strength and durability. When Vathrine guards attacked, the two species covered each other's weaknesses perfectly. On the Indomitable's bridge, Telmara was monitoring multiple battles simultaneously. Her exosuit felt like a second skin now after days of wearing it. She had learned to think like a human tactician, aggressive, adaptable, willing to take risks. "Captain Rivera," she said, highlighting a section of the Vathrine fleet. "Their formation is weakening here. If we concentrate fire, we can create an opening for retreat." "Agreed. Signal all ships. Concentrated assault on coordinates Telmara is transmitting. Pour everything into that point." The Allied fleet, human and council ships working in perfect coordination, focused their combined firepower on a single section of the Vathrine blockade. Railguns, energy weapons, missiles, even ramming attacks. The Vathrine lines buckled under the assault. Deep inside the Queen's ship, Hastings and his team fought through corridors that seemed to shift and change. The ship itself was defending its mistress. Walls trying to crush them, floors opening into pits, toxic gas flooding compartments. "This way," Grom called, his species' natural sense of direction proving invaluable in the maze-like interior. They reached a massive chamber, and at its center was the Queen herself. She was enormous, 3 times the size of her soldiers, her carapace marked with intricate patterns that glowed with bioluminescence. Around her stood dozens of royal guards, the most dangerous Vathrine warriors in existence. "So the prey comes to me," the Queen spoke, her voice translated through their suit systems. "You are brave. Foolish, but brave. What is your name, human?" "Commander Hastings, Earth Space Service. I am Queen Zarveth, Mother of Hives, conqueror of 40 species. And you, Hastings of Earth, are the first prey to reach my inner sanctum. You have earned the right to know why we fight. We do not conquer for pleasure. We conquer to survive. Our species must consume to live. We are evolution's perfect weapon. Evolution's perfect weapon just lost to a bunch of prey species working together, Hastings replied. Maybe it is time to evolve something new. Like cooperation. The Queen's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. You fight to protect species that feared you. Why? Because someone asked for help. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she signaled her guards to stand down. You could kill me now. Plant your explosives and destroy this ship. But I wish to speak with your Captain Rivera, face to face. Will you arrange this or must we continue this battle? On the Indomitable, Rivera received Hastings' transmission with surprise. The Queen wants to negotiate? After 42 hours of combat? She says she has never met a species like us, Captain. She wants to understand. Rivera made a decision that would have been unthinkable at the start of the battle. Tell her I will come to her. But Hastings, if this is a trap, you are authorized to complete your mission. 20 minutes later, Rivera stood in the Queen's chamber, surrounded by Vathrine guards but protected by Hastings and his combined human Brektar team. The Queen studied the human captain with compound eyes that missed nothing. You are small, the Queen observed. Soft, no natural weapons, no armor. Yet you commanded a fleet that held against numbers that should have overwhelmed you. How? Rivera met the alien's gaze without fear. Because we are not individuals. We are a collective of our own kind. Every human, every council member fighting for the same goal. You see us as prey, but we see ourselves as survivors. And survivors do not give up. I wish to know about your world, Earth. Why? So you can add it to your list of conquests? No, so I can understand what creates warriors like you. The Queen shifted her massive bulk. I have conquered 40 species. All of them begged, negotiated, tried to buy survival with resources. You offered only defiance and mutual destruction. I have never experienced this. My entire species has never experienced this. Rivera considered her response carefully. Earth is a death world. High gravity, extreme weather, deadly predators. We evolved in an environment that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight back, to adapt, to overcome. But we also learned something else. We learned that survival is easier together. That cooperation is strength, and you would cooperate with us after we tried to exterminate you? That depends. Can you change? Can your species learn to coexist rather than consume? The Queen was silent for several minutes. Around them, the ship seemed to hold its breath. Finally, she spoke again. I do not know, but I am willing to try. This battle has taught me that there are forces in the galaxy we cannot simply overwhelm. You humans have shown us a different path, one we never considered. Then withdraw your fleet. End this siege. And we will discuss terms. I will withdraw. But I request asylum. Not from the council that I attacked. From Earth. I wish to understand your species more deeply. Rivera's eyes widened slightly. The Vathrine Queen, a conqueror of worlds, was requesting protection from humanity. The irony was not lost on her. 6 months later, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Council formally inducted humanity as full members with all rights and privileges. The quarantine of Earth was lifted, and human ships now traveled freely through Council space. The Deathworlder exchange program became the most sought-after training in the galaxy. Council species sent their military officers to Earth to learn human tactics, to experience high-gravity training, to understand the warrior mindset that came from a harsh world. Telmara was among the first graduates. She now commanded a joint task force with human advisors helping Council species integrate Deathworlder doctrine into their defenses. The galaxy was learning that peace required not just civilization, but the strength to defend it. On the Meridai homeworld, now stabilized thanks to combined human and Council engineering efforts, Ambassador Relthos met with Captain Rivera for a private dinner. They sat in a restaurant overlooking the ocean, gravity adjusted to comfortable levels for both species. I was sentenced to death for contacting you, Relthos mused, sipping a drink. Now I'm celebrated as a hero. The universe has a sense of irony. Rivera smiled. You took a risk. It paid off. But I must ask, what would you have done if we had come as conquerors instead of allies? I would have called for help again. Perhaps the next species would have been kinder. Relthos paused. But I studied humans before I made that call. I saw your history. Your wars, yes, but also your art, your philosophy, your capacity for both destruction and creation. I gambled that your better nature would win, and if it had not, then at least we would have died fighting rather than cowering. You taught us that. Dignity and defiance. Across the galaxy, on a secured facility orbiting Earth, Queen Zarveth studied human culture with fascination. She had spent months learning their languages, their history, their values, and slowly she was teaching her species a new way. The Vathreen were beginning to understand that consumption could include ideas, not just resources. 1 year after the siege of Corvallis Gate, a new distress call reached Council space. A small species on the rim, under attack by pirates, sent out a desperate plea for help. This time the response was immediate. Human ships jumped to faster than light alongside Council vessels, moving in perfect coordination. The pirates, expecting easy prey, instead faced a combined fleet that had learned to fight together. The rescue took less than 6 hours. When the grateful species asked who had saved them, they received a simple answer. We are the Galactic Alliance, and we answer the call. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson through blood and sacrifice. Strength without compassion was tyranny, but compassion without strength was extinction. Humanity had brought both to the stars, and in doing so they did not conquer the galaxy, they taught it how to roar. The emergency beacon cut through the silence of space like a scream. Deep in the communications room of the human warship Tempest, Officer James Mitchell heard it first. His hands froze over the control panel as the translation program decoded the alien message. Commander Reyna Voss, you need to hear this right now, James called out, his voice tight with urgency. Reyna walked quickly into the room, her boots making soft thuds on the metal floor. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. What is it? It's from the Galactic Council. They're under attack. The message played through the speakers. A scared voice spoke in a language that sounded like musical notes, but the translation was clear enough. This is Station Harmony. We need help. The Vraken are here. Our weapons don't work against them. 40,000 people are trapped. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need military help. Our children are here. Reyna felt her stomach tighten. The Galactic Council had always kept humans at a distance. They called Earth a death world because of its harsh conditions and high gravity. They were afraid of humans because they saw the scars of old wars on Earth. But now they were calling for help. How far away are they? Reyna asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, James replied. But Commander, we only have 3 ships in this sector. The Tempest, the Valkyrie, and the Reaper's Edge. That's not much of a rescue force, Reyna thought for a moment. The smart choice would be to wait for more ships. The safe choice would be to ask permission from Earth Command first. But 40,000 people didn't have time for smart or safe. Send a message to the Valkyrie and Reaper's Edge. Tell them we're going in, then contact Admiral Jackson on Earth. Let him know what we're doing. Yes, ma'am, James said, already typing the commands. Within minutes, the 3 human ships changed course. Their powerful engines pushed them faster through the darkness of space. On each ship, crews moved to battle stations. Weapons were checked and loaded. Medical bays prepared for possible casualties. Lieutenant Marcus Webb came to stand beside Reyna on the bridge. He was the weapons officer, a quiet man who spoke little but thought deeply. The Vraken are supposed to be a hive mind species. They travel in swarms and eat everything they find. The Council ships aren't built for real combat. I know, Reyna said. That's why they called us. Do you think we can actually help them? Marcus asked. 3 ships against a swarm? Reyna looked at the star map showing their course. The Council races evolved on gentle worlds. They've never had to fight for survival like humans did. They build beautiful things and make art and study science. That's wonderful. But sometimes the universe sends something ugly their way. When that happens, they need people who know how to fight ugly. Marcus nodded slowly. The Deathworlders. Exactly. Hours passed as the ships raced through space. The crew of the Tempest stayed busy, running drills and checking systems. Everyone knew they were heading into danger, but no one complained. This was what they trained for. Finally, James spoke up again. We're receiving another transmission from Harmony Station. It's bad, Commander. The new message showed video feed from inside the station. Alien civilians ran through corridors while insect-like creatures chased them. The Vraken were bigger than humans with sharp claws and armor-like shells. They moved fast and attacked without mercy. How long until we arrive? Reyna asked. 30 minutes, replied the pilot, a young woman named Kayla Torres. Not fast enough, Reyna muttered. Then louder. All hands, this is the commander. When we arrive, we'll be facing an enemy that doesn't negotiate and doesn't retreat. The Vrakan only understand one thing, and that's force. We're going to show them what happens when they threaten people under our protection. Every person on that station matters. We don't leave anyone behind. The crew responded with a chorus of acknowledgments. They were ready. When the 3 human ships finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Harmony Station, the sight that greeted them was worse than expected. The station looked like it was being eaten alive. Dozens of Vrakan bioships clung to its surface like ticks on an animal. The elegant alien architecture was torn and bleeding atmosphere into space. I count 73 Vrakan vessels, Marcus reported, mix of fighters and larger carrier types. They outnumber us badly, Kayla said, worry in her voice. Reyna studied the tactical display. The Vrakan were focused on the station, tearing it apart piece by piece. They hadn't noticed the human ships yet. That gave them a few precious seconds of advantage. Contact the Valkyrie and Reaper's Edge, Reyna ordered. We hit the carrier ships first. Those are spawning more fighters. Take them out and we cut off their reinforcements. Weapons ready, Marcus confirmed, targeting the 3 largest carriers. Fire, Reyna said calmly. The railguns on all 3 human ships fired at the same moment. These weren't the energy weapons that the Council used. Railguns were simple but devastating. They used magnetic force to launch solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. When tungsten rods the size of cars hit the Vrakan carriers, the results were spectacular. The bioships didn't just break apart. They shattered. Pieces of organic material scattered in all directions as the kinetic energy tore through their bodies. The Vrakan had armor that could heal and adapt to energy weapons, but they had no defense against pure physical force. 3 carriers destroyed, Marcus reported with satisfaction. Now the Vrakan noticed them. The swarm began turning away from the station, forming up to attack these new enemies. 70 ships moved together like a living cloud, heading straight for the human vessels. Here they come, Kayla said. Should I take evasive action? Negative, Reyna replied. Hold course. Activate point defense systems. As the Vrakan fighters swarmed closer, thousands of small cannons across the Tempest's hull came to life. They fired in coordinated patterns, creating a wall of bullets around the ship. Any Vrakan that flew into that defensive sphere was torn apart instantly. The aliens had never seen anything like it. They were used to fighting enemies who used precise energy beams that could be dodged. The humans used weapons that filled space with solid projectiles. There was nowhere to dodge. Enemy fighter groups breaking up, Marcus reported. They're confused. Keep the pressure on, Reyna ordered. Target those medium-sized carriers next. The 3 human ships worked together like they had practiced 1,000 times. They covered each other, making sure no Vrakan could attack from a blind spot. Their weapons never stopped firing. Every few seconds, another Vrakan ship died. On Harmony Station, the alien civilians watched through whatever windows still had a view of space. They saw the human ships moving through the Vrakan swarm like sharks through a school of fish. It was violent and brutal, but it was also beautiful in its efficiency. An old alien named Archon Tellus stood at an observation window, his blue skin pale with stress. They're really doing it, he whispered. The Deathworlders are saving us. Beside him, a young female alien named Meridia watched the battle with wide eyes. I thought humans would be more careful. More cautious. Careful? Tellus shook his head. Humans come from a world where everything tries to kill them. The weather, the animals, even the plants are dangerous. They learn to fight back against everything. Now they're fighting for us. Outside, the battle continued. The Vrakan were learning that they had made a terrible mistake. They thought the humans would be easy prey, soft like the other council races. Instead, they found predators more dangerous than themselves, and the humans were just getting started. The Vrakan were beginning to understand their error. These newcomers didn't fight like the council races. They didn't try to disable or drive away enemies. They simply destroyed everything in their path. Commander Reyna Voss watched her tactical display as another group of Vrakan fighters died under the Tempest's guns. The swarm was starting to break apart, their formation becoming disorganized. Good. Confused enemies made mistakes. Commander, we're getting a direct communication from inside the station, James announced. Someone named Archon Tellus wants to talk. Put him through, Reyna said. The screen showed an elderly alien with blue skin and large eyes. His face showed relief and fear mixed together. Human Commander, thank you for coming. We thought no one would answer our call. We heard people needed help, Reyna replied simply. How many Vraken made it inside the station? Too many, Tellus said, his voice shaking. They broke through our security barriers. We have civilians trapped in several sections. Our security forces don't have weapons strong enough to stop these creatures. Reyna made a decision. We'll send troops to help. Our Marines are trained for this kind of work. Where do you need them most? Tellus sent coordinate data. Section 7 has over 5,000 civilians, including many children. The Vraken are breaking through our final barriers. Please hurry. Understood. Hold on a little longer. Reyna switched channels. Sergeant Lucia Reyes, gather your Marines. You're going into the station. Full combat gear.
Expect heavy resistance. Yes, ma'am, came the reply.
We'll get those people out. 20 Marines loaded into drop pods, small spacecraft designed to carry soldiers from ship to station quickly. Each Marine wore powered armor that increased their strength and protected them from weapons fire. They carried rifles that used chemical explosives to fire bullets, grenades that could blow holes in walls, and combat knives as backup weapons. The drop pods launched from the Tempest, streaking across space toward Harmony Station. They punched through the damaged hull and landed inside the alien corridors with loud crashes. Sergeant Lucia Reyes was the first out of her pod. She was a short woman, but her powered armor made her look like a giant. Through her helmet display, she could see the layout of the station that Archon Tellus had provided. Move out, she ordered. Stay together and watch your corners. These bugs are fast. The Marines advanced through corridors that were elegant and beautiful, clearly designed by people who valued art. Now those corridors were damaged and dark, filled with the sounds of people screaming and creatures chittering. They found the first Vraken in a large open room. 3 of the insect creatures were trying to break through a reinforced door where civilians hid. The aliens were as tall as a human but built like nightmares, with multiple legs, sharp claws, and mouths full of teeth. The Vraken turned when they heard the Marines approaching. For a moment everyone froze. Then Lucia fired her rifle. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Bullets tore through the first Vraken, punching holes in its armored shell. The creature fell, twitching. Its companions charged at the Marines. Concentrate fire, Lucia commanded calmly. All 20 Marines fired at once. The Vraken were tough, but they weren't tough enough. Within seconds, both creatures lay dead on the floor. Clear, Lucia announced. She approached the reinforced door and knocked on it. U.S. Marines, we're here to help. You can come out now. The door opened slowly. Alien faces peered out, filled with fear and hope. They were different species, different colors and shapes, but all showed the same relief at being rescued. A female alien who looked like she was made of crystal stepped forward. You killed them so quickly. We've been fighting the Vraken for hours with our energy weapons, but they just heal from those injuries. Our weapons work different, Lucia explained. Now come on, we need to get you to the safe zones. While the Marines worked inside the station, the space battle continued outside. The 3 human ships had destroyed most of the Vraken fighters, but the larger carrier ships were proving harder to kill. These massive bioships could absorb damage and keep fighting. Captain Helena Marks commanded the destroyer Valkyrie. She studied the largest carrier on her display. It was 3 times the size of her ship and covered in thick armor plates. We need to hit it where it's vulnerable, she said to her crew. These creatures are still organic. They have weak points just like any living thing. Scanning for vital areas, reported her science officer. I'm detecting a cluster of energy signatures in the center of the mass. Could be some kind of nerve center or brain. That's our target, Helena decided. Load armor-piercing rounds. We're going to punch right through to its core. The Valkyrie turned and accelerated toward the massive carrier. Vraken fighters tried to block the approach, but the point defense system cut them down. When the destroyer was close enough, it fired its main railgun. The tungsten slug hit the carrier's shell and penetrated deep inside. The creature convulsed as the round destroyed critical internal organs. It began spinning out of control, crashing into other Vraken ships. Confirmed kill, the science officer reported. The carrier is dead. Back on the Tempest, Reyna received updates from all fronts. The Marines were successfully evacuating civilians. The Valkyrie and Reaper's Edge were eliminating the remaining carriers. The battle was turning in their favor. Commander, the Vraken are starting to retreat, Marcus announced. The survivors are breaking off and heading for the outer system. Don't let them escape, Reyna ordered. If even one ship gets away and reports back to their hive, they'll learn about our tactics. Chase them down. The 3 human ships pursued the fleeing Vraken. It wasn't glorious or exciting. It was simply necessary work. Each enemy ship was tracked down and destroyed. No mercy, no hesitation. Inside the station, Sergeant Lucia and her Marines had secured Section 7 and were moving to other areas. They found more groups of trapped civilians and more Vraken creatures. Each time the result was the same. The Marines fought with calm efficiency, killing the aliens and protecting the innocent. One young Marine named Private Danny King encountered a Vraken that was wounded but still dangerous. It lunged at him with surprising speed. Danny didn't panic. He sidestepped the attack and smashed the creature with his armored fist. The power in his suit's servos turned the punch into a devastating impact that crushed the alien's head. An alien child watched this happen. She was small and furry, some species Danny didn't recognize. After the Vraken was dead, she ran to him and hugged his armored leg. Danny knelt down to her level. "Hey, you're okay now. We're not going to let anything hurt you." The child didn't speak English and Danny didn't speak her language, but some meanings cross all barriers. She understood she was safe. 3 hours after the humans arrived, the last Vraken ship was destroyed. The space around Harmony Station was filled with debris and floating bodies, but the station itself was secure. All the civilians were safe in protected areas. Archon Tellus stood in the station's command center with Commander Reyna Voss, who had come over on a shuttle. The old alien looked at the human with something like awe. "You saved us all," he said quietly. "The Council Defense Fleet fought the Vraken for days before retreating. You destroyed them in hours. How is that possible?" Reyna considered her answer carefully. "The Council races come from gentle worlds. You never had to develop serious weapons because you never faced serious threats. Humans evolved in a much harder environment. We've been fighting and killing since before we had language. War is something we understand in our bones." "That sounds terrible," Tellus said. "It is terrible," Reyna agreed. "Humans have done awful things to each other throughout history. We fought wars that killed millions, but we learned from that pain. We learned that violence should only be used to protect, not to conquer. When we heard your call for help, every human ship in range turned toward you without hesitation, not because we wanted glory or rewards, because it was the right thing to do." Tellus was quiet for a moment. "The Council always feared you. We called your people Deathworlders and kept you at a distance. Now I understand we were wrong. You're not monsters. You're just very, very good at fighting monsters." "We do what we can," Reyna said simply. "Now let's talk about repairs. The Tempest has engineering teams that can help fix your station, and I'd recommend adding some better defensive weapons. The Vraken might come back." As they discussed plans, a message came through from Earth Command. Admiral Jackson appeared on the screen, his dark face serious. "Commander Voss, we've received your report. Well done on the rescue. However, we're getting reports that the Vraken have attacked 17 other Council systems. The Council is formally requesting military assistance from Earth." Reyna straightened. "What are your orders, sir?" "Help them," Jackson said. "Help all of them. I'm sending every available ship to support you. The Deathworlders are going to war." News of the rescue at Harmony Station spread through the Galactic Council faster than light itself. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly learned their name. The Deathworlders had come when called and saved 40,000 lives without asking for anything in return. But the celebrations were short. The Vraken were attacking everywhere, and the Council's military forces were designed for peacekeeping, not real war. They needed help desperately. The human response was immediate and massive. Every warship Earth had built over the past 50 years began moving toward Council space. Battleships and destroyers, cruisers and carriers all converged on the threatened systems. It was the largest military deployment in human history. Admiral James Jackson commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought called Revelation. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, a veteran of Earth's last major war. He had hoped never to command a large fleet in combat again, but duty called. "Status report," he ordered, as his ship entered Council space. Commander David Park looked up from his tactical station. "We have 43 ships assembled, sir. More are arriving every hour. The Council has provided us with intelligence on Vraken positions." "Show me." The tactical display lit up with multiple star systems, each marked with red indicators showing Vraken presence. Some systems had small raiding forces. Others showed massive swarms. The worst hit was a planet called Viridian Prime, home to 20 billion aliens. Viridian Prime is their capital world, Park explained. The Vraken hit it with over 200 ships. Council defense forces are holding, but barely. Jackson studied the map. We can't be everywhere at once. We need to prioritize. Which systems have the largest civilian populations? Park highlighted 6 systems. These have populations over 5 billion each. The Vraken are hitting them hard, probably trying to maximize casualties and create panic. Then that's where we go, Jackson decided. Split the fleet into 6 battle groups. Each group hits one system with overwhelming force. We show the Vraken that attacking civilians brings down the full weight of human military power. The orders went out. Ships divided into groups and headed for their assigned targets. Jackson personally led his group toward Viridian Prime, bringing 15 warships to face the swarm threatening the Council's capital. The journey took 6 hours. When they arrived, the situation was even worse than reported. Vraken ships surrounded the beautiful blue-green planet, while on the surface, bioships had landed and were attacking cities. Dear God, Park whispered. There are thousands of them. Jackson's jaw tightened. Then we kill thousands. All ships, battle formation. Target the ships in orbit first, then we deal with the ground forces. The human ships moved into attack positions. They were outnumbered 5-1, but numbers didn't matter as much as tactics and firepower. All ships fire at will, Jackson commanded. Space lit up with weapons fire. Railgun rounds crossed the distance in seconds, smashing into Vraken carriers. Missiles streaked out in swarms, each one tracking a different target. The point defense systems created spheres of death around each human ship. The Vraken responded by swarming the human vessels, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. It was their standard tactic, and it had worked against Council ships. But human vessels were built differently. The destroyer Phoenix found itself surrounded by 40 Vraken fighters. Its captain, a woman named Isabel Grant, didn't panic. Activate full point defense grid, she ordered calmly. Thousands of small cannons across the Phoenix's hull opened fire simultaneously. The space around the ship became a storm of bullets. Vraken fighters flew into that storm and were torn apart. In 30 seconds, all 40 were destroyed. Clear, Isabel reported, moving to next target cluster. On the ground, the situation was desperate. The aliens living in the capital city had never experienced war before. Their elegant buildings provided no real protection against the Vraken invaders. Millions of civilians ran through streets while the insect creatures hunted them. Major Roy Blackwood commanded a company of Marines aboard the assault carrier Indomitable. He watched the footage from the ground with growing anger. We need to get down there, he told Admiral Jackson over the comm link. Those people are being slaughtered. Agreed, Jackson replied. You have authorization for immediate deployment. Save as many as you can. Yes, sir. Marines, load up. We're going in hot. Drop pods rained from the sky over Viridian Prime's capital. Each one carried 4 Marines in powered armor, armed and ready for combat. They landed in the middle of battle zones between the civilians and their attackers. Sergeant Lucia Reyes was in the first wave. Her pod crashed through the roof of an elegant crystal building, and she emerged into a nightmare. Vraken drones filled the street outside, attacking aliens who couldn't fight back. Marines, form a perimeter, she ordered. Weapons free. The sound of human weapons firing was like thunder. Bullets tore through Vraken bodies, dropping them by the dozens. The aliens were tough, but not tough enough to survive concentrated fire from military-grade weapons. A group of local aliens huddled nearby, some species Lucia had never seen before. They stared at the armored humans in shock. Don't worry, Lucia called to them. We're the good guys. Stay behind us and you'll be safe. More Marines landed throughout the city. They formed strong points and began evacuating civilians to protected areas. The Vraken, used to facing minimal resistance, suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy that knew how to coordinate and use overwhelming firepower. Private Danny King and his squad were defending a shelter where thousands of civilians had gathered. Vraken kept attacking in waves, trying to break through. How many more of these things are there? Danny asked, reloading his rifle. Doesn't matter, replied Corporal Eva Novak. We hold this position until everyone is safe. That's the mission. A large Vraken, bigger than the others, charged at their line. Danny switched his rifle to full automatic and fired continuously. The bullets walked up the creature's body, finally finding a weak spot in its head armor. It fell just meters away from the Marine position. Inside the shelter, the aliens watched these armored humans fight with fierce determination. One elderly alien named Archon Felix approached the Marine commander. "Why are you doing this?" Felix asked. "Your people barely know us. Why risk your lives for strangers?" The Marine commander, Captain Lisa Park, looked at the crowded shelter full of scared families. "Because someone has to. Because we can. Because it's right. Take your pick." "But you're so calm about it," Felix said. "Like this is normal for you." Lisa smiled sadly. "Where we come from, danger is normal. Earth has earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, predators. Humans evolved by surviving things that tried to kill us every day. We're good at this because we've had lots of practice. Now we use those skills to protect people who never had to learn them." In orbit, the space battle was turning in humanity's favor. The Vrakan swarm, despite its numbers, was being systematically destroyed. Human ships worked in coordinated groups, covering each other and creating kill zones that nothing could survive. Admiral Jackson watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "How many Vrakan ships remain?" "Counting 47 in orbit," Commander Park reported. "Down from 200. They're starting to break formation. Good, let them run. Then we'll hunt down the survivors." Jackson opened a channel to all ships. "All vessels continue engagement. I want every Vrakan ship destroyed or driven from this system. Show them what happens when they attack a world under human protection." The battle continued for another 3 hours. Slowly, methodically, the human fleet eliminated every Vrakan presence in the Viridian system. The survivors tried to retreat, but human ships pursued them relentlessly. On the ground, the Marines had secured major population centers and were expanding their protective perimeter. The Vrakan ground forces, finding themselves unable to break through human defenses and cut off from orbital support, began a desperate retreat. Major Blackwood coordinated the final sweeps. "Don't let any escape. Every Vrakan that gets away is a future threat to these people." The Marines hunted down the remaining aliens with methodical efficiency. There was no glory in it, no excitement. Just hard, necessary work to ensure the civilians would be safe. By the time night fell on Viridian Prime, the battle was over. The Vrakan were gone, either dead or fled. The cities were damaged but standing. The civilians were traumatized but alive. Similar scenes played out across all 6 systems that human battle groups had defended. Each time the result was the same: total victory, minimal civilian casualties, complete destruction of Vrakan forces. The Galactic Council watched these results with amazement. The Deathworlders had done in days what Council forces couldn't do in weeks. Every system the humans defended was saved. Messages began flooding to Earth and to Admiral Jackson. Gratitude, requests for help with other systems, questions about tactics and weapons. The Council suddenly realized they had much to learn from these violent, efficient warriors. Jackson read through the messages and sighed. "Commander Park, start organizing training programs. The Council needs to learn how to defend themselves properly. Should we share our weapons technology?" Park asked. "Some of it," Jackson replied. "Enough that they can build proper defenses. But more importantly, we need to teach them how to think about security. They've lived in peace so long they forgot that sometimes peace has to be defended with strength." A priority message came through from Viridian Prime. It was from High Counselor Zara, the leader of the Viridian people. Her crystalline features showed on the screen. "Admiral Jackson," she said formally, "on behalf of all Viridians, I thank you and your people. You saved billions of lives today. We are forever in your debt." "No debt necessary," Jackson replied. "We did what needed doing. Still, we must acknowledge what you've done. The Council would like to extend a formal invitation. We want humanity to join the Galactic Council as full members. No more keeping you at arm's length. No more treating you as dangerous outsiders. You've proven yourselves to be exactly the kind of people we need as allies." Jackson was quiet for a moment. "That's a generous offer, High Counselor. I'll need to discuss it with Earth's government. But speaking personally, I think that would be a good thing. Humans can learn much from you, and apparently you can learn from us." "Indeed," Zara agreed. "Perhaps together we can build something stronger than either of us could alone." As the communication ended, Jackson looked out at the stars. Humanity had come to space looking for friends and found a galaxy that needed protecting. It wasn't what they expected, but maybe it was what they were meant for. "Sir?" Park said quietly. "The other battle groups are reporting in. All 6 systems secured. Total Vrakan forces destroyed. Human casualties are minimal." "Good," Jackson said. "Send a message to all ships, well done. Now we prepare for the next phase. Because I guarantee the Vraken haven't given up. They're just regrouping, he was right. In the darkness between stars, the Vraken hive mind processed the new data. These humans were dangerous. More dangerous than any species they had encountered. The swarm would need to adapt, to learn, to find weaknesses. The war was far from over. It was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber on Viridian Prime was the most beautiful building humans had ever seen. Made entirely of crystal that caught and reflected light in rainbow patterns, it stood at the heart of the capital city. Today it was filled with representatives from every council species, all gathered for an emergency meeting. Admiral Jackson stood at the center of the chamber, feeling distinctly out of place among the elegant aliens. He was still wearing his military uniform, practical and plain compared to the flowing robes and natural beauty of the council members. Archon Tellus, who had survived the attack on Harmony Station, spoke first. We have called this assembly to discuss our relationship with humanity. Recent events have shown us that our previous caution was misplaced. The humans answered our distress call and saved millions of lives across 6 systems. A tall alien named Counselor Vorin stood up. He was from the Ashiri species. Tall and graceful with skin that seemed to glow from within. The humans did save us, this is true. But we must discuss the cost. Their weapons are incredibly destructive. The debris fields they created will take years to clean up. Is this really the kind of ally we want? Jackson cleared his throat. May I speak? Tellus nodded. Please, Admiral. We want to hear your perspective. I understand your concerns about our methods, Jackson began. Yes, our weapons are destructive. Yes, we fight in ways that seem excessive to you. But consider the alternative. Without our intervention, those 6 systems would have fallen. Billions would be dead. Instead, you're complaining about cleanup work. Vorin shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair. We're grateful for your help, but your entire culture is based on conflict. You come from a world so dangerous you had to become warriors just to survive. How do we know you won't turn those weapons on us someday? An older alien woman named Counselor Meridia spoke up. She was from the same species as Vorin, but seemed more thoughtful. I was on Harmony Station during the attack. I watched human Marines risk their lives to save our children. One soldier stood between a group of younglings and 3 Vraken drones. She could have retreated to safety, but she didn't. She fought until all the children were evacuated. Meridia looked around the chamber. That doesn't sound like someone who wants to hurt us. That sounds like someone willing to die for strangers. A young Viridian counselor named Ada raised her hand nervously. I have a question for Admiral Jackson. If you're so good at fighting and we're so bad at it, what stops you from just taking over? You have all the weapons and military power. Why not conquer us? Jackson smiled slightly. Because conquest isn't victory. Look, I'm not going to pretend humans are saints. We've done terrible things to each other in our history. Wars, genocides, all kinds of horrors. But we learned from those mistakes. We learned that real strength isn't about dominating others. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. He activated a holographic display showing Earth. This is our world. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous animals. Everything there tried to kill us, so we got good at killing back. But we also learned cooperation. Humans survived because we worked together, protected each other, built communities. That's what we're offering you now. Protection and partnership. Theodore, a counselor from the scholarly Lumina species, spoke next. His body glowed with bioluminescent patterns that showed his emotions. Fine words, Admiral. But how do we know you mean them? Actions speak louder than words. Then judge us by our actions, Jackson replied. We came when you called. We fought your enemies. We asked for nothing in return. We're offering to train your defense forces and share some technology. Does that sound like conquerors? The chamber fell silent as the counselors considered this. Finally, Archon Tellus stood again. I propose a formal alliance. Humanity joins the Galactic Council as full members. In exchange, they provide military expertise and help us develop better defensive capabilities. We maintain oversight of their actions but trust their judgment in combat situations. That's asking a lot of trust, Vorin said. It is, Tellus agreed. But the alternative is facing the next threat alone. The Vraken showed us that the galaxy is more dangerous than we thought. We need friends who understand danger. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors worried about giving humans too much power. Others argued that without human help, the council was doomed. In the end, young Ada proposed a compromise. What if we start small? She suggested. Let humans defend 6 more systems under full council observation. We watch, we learn, we evaluate. After that, we decide whether to expand the alliance. Jackson nodded. That works for us. We're not asking for blind trust. Watch us work. See how we operate. Then decide. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would have a trial period as council defenders. If they proved themselves trustworthy, full membership would follow. As the meeting ended and the counselors filed out, Vorin approached Jackson privately. I voted against you, the Ashiri said bluntly. I think you're dangerous. You're not wrong, Jackson admitted. Humans are dangerous, but we're dangerous to your enemies, not to you. Prove it, Vorin challenged. 3 of those 6 systems you'll be defending have major children's colonies, millions of younglings. If you let them die while chasing some tactical goal, I'll make sure the Council never trusts Earth again. Jackson met his eyes steadily. We won't let them die. Humans have a rule: we don't abandon people who need us, especially children. Watch and see. Vorin studied him for a long moment, then nodded and walked away. Commander Park appeared at Jackson's side. That went better than expected, sir. We got our trial period. Now comes the hard part, Jackson said, living up to their expectations while also winning battles. The Vraken won't stay beaten. They're learning from each engagement. Speaking of which, intelligence reports indicate major Vraken movement in Sector 7. Looks like they're planning another major offensive. Jackson pulled up the tactical display on his personal device. The data showed Vraken forces concentrating near several systems, including those children's colonies Vorin had mentioned. They're testing us, Jackson realized. They know the Council is watching our performance. If we fail to protect those kids, the Alliance falls apart. So what do? We don't fail, Jackson said simply. Contact all battle group commanders. Tell them to begin immediate deployment to their assigned systems, and send a priority message to Earth Command. We need more ships, more Marines, and more supplies. The Vraken are coming in force, and we need to be ready. Over the next week, human forces moved into position. Each of the 6 systems received a battle group strong enough to handle significant threats. Engineers began installing better sensor networks and defensive platforms. Marines trained local security forces in basic combat tactics. On a planet called Kelmar 7, home to 8 million civilians, including 3 million children, Captain Helena Marks commanded the defense preparations. Her destroyer Valkyrie led a small fleet of 5 ships, a light force by human standards but massive compared to what the Council usually deployed. The civilians here are nervous, reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb. They've never had a military presence on their world before. Some are worried we're here to take over. Helena sighed. Schedule me a meeting with the local leaders. I'll explain that we're here to help, not conquer. The meeting took place in a simple building near the colony's main school. The local mayor, an alien named Magistrate Torin, looked worried. Captain Marks, we appreciate Earth's help, but your ship's in orbit, your soldiers on the ground, it makes people nervous. We're not used to this. Helena chose her words carefully. I understand. Your people have lived in peace for generations. Military forces seem threatening, but the Vraken are coming. Intelligence indicates they'll attack within days. Would you rather face them alone? Torn's mandibles clicked nervously. He was Kelmar, an insect-like species, but nothing like the Vraken. No, of course not. But why do you need so many weapons? Can't we just talk to the Vraken? The Vraken don't talk, Helena said gently. They're a hive mind that only understands consumption. They see your children as food, your buildings as raw materials. There's no negotiating with that. So we need weapons and soldiers and ships to stand between them and your families. She activated a display showing the Vraken attacks on other systems. This is what happened to worlds that didn't have proper defenses. Millions dead, cities destroyed, entire populations consumed. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen to you. Torin watched the footage with growing horror. I had heard reports, but seeing it... How can any species be so cruel? They're not cruel, Helena explained. Cruelty implies choice. The Vraken are just following their nature. That's what makes them so dangerous. You can't reason with instinct, and humans? What is your nature? Helena smiled. We're survivors and protectors. When we see people in danger, something in us says, not on my watch. It's not always logical. It's just who we are. A young Kelmar child ran into the room, followed by a flustered parent. The child looked at Helena with curious eyes. Are you a soldier? I am, Helena confirmed. Will you keep the monsters away? Helena knelt down to the child's level. Yes, I promise. The monsters won't hurt you or your family. My crew and I will make sure of it. The child smiled and ran back to its parent. Torin watched this exchange with thoughtful eyes. Perhaps we judged you too quickly, he said quietly. You are warriors, yes. But you're also people who care about protecting children. That's worth trusting. 3 days later, the Vraken came. The sensor network detected them first. A swarm of 60 bioships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were heading straight for Kelmar 7. Helena stood on the Valkyrie's bridge, calm despite the odds. All ships, battle stations, prepare for engagement. And someone send a message to the surface. Stay in your shelters. We've got this. The 5 human ships moved to intercept the swarm. They were outnumbered 12-1, but Helena had fought worse odds before. Weapons ready, Captain, reported the tactical officer. Then let's introduce the Vraken to the concept of a properly defended world, Helena said. Fire. The battle for Kelmar 7 had begun. The Vraken swarm approached Kelmar 7 like a living cloud, 60 bioships moving in perfect coordination. On the planet below, millions of aliens huddled in shelters, listening to the sounds of approaching danger. Captain Helena Marks watched the tactical display on the Valkyrie's bridge. Her 5 ships looked tiny compared to the enemy force, but she felt no fear. Just determination. They're splitting up, reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb. Main force heading for the planet, smaller groups moving to flank us. Classic swarm tactics, Helena observed. They want to overwhelm us from multiple directions. Don't let them. All ships, tight formation. We concentrate firepower on one target at a time. The human ships moved closer together, creating overlapping fields of fire. When the first Vraken fighters came within range, every point defense system activated simultaneously. The space between the human ships and the Vraken became a storm of bullets. Thousands of rounds crossed the distance every second. The bioships had armor that could regenerate and adapt, but there was no adapting to this level of firepower. They simply died. First wave eliminated, Marcus reported. Counting 19 kills. Second wave incoming. Keep firing, Helena ordered calmly. Don't give them time to learn. On the ground, Magistrate Torin watched a screen showing the space battle. Human ships moved like dancers, perfectly coordinated, their weapons never stopping. The Vraken kept attacking, but they couldn't break through. How are they so efficient? Torin whispered. Beside him stood a human Marine, Sergeant Danny King, who had been assigned to protect the command shelter. Practice, Danny said simply. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We got really good at tactics and coordination. Now we use those skills for good. But you're so calm about killing, Torin observed. Danny thought about that. It's not that we like it. It's that we understand it's necessary. Those Vraken out there want to eat your children. Stopping them isn't murder. It's protection. In space, the battle intensified. The Vraken were learning that frontal assaults didn't work, so they tried something new. Several bioships broke from the main group and headed for the planet's surface, trying to bypass the human fleet. They're going for a ground assault, Marcus warned. Helena made a quick decision. Valkyrie stays in orbit to guard against the main force. Phoenix and Sentinel, pursue those dropships. Don't let them reach the surface. 2 destroyers broke formation and chased after the Vraken attempting to land. Their railguns fired continuously, picking off bioships one by one, but a few got through, crashing into the planet's forest near the main colony. Ground contact confirmed, Danny reported from his position. Multiple Vraken landing sites. I'm taking my squad out to intercept. Be careful, Helena said over the comm. We can't provide orbital support without risking civilian casualties. Understood. We'll handle it the old-fashioned way. Danny and his Marine squad left the shelter and headed toward the forest. Their armor sensors detected Vraken movement ahead. Lots of movement. Contact front, called Corporal Lisa Reyes. Multiple hostiles, range 200 meters. Spread out and advance, Danny ordered. Use the trees for cover. These bugs are tough, but they're not bulletproof. The Marines moved through the alien forest with practiced efficiency. When the Vraken appeared, emerging from the undergrowth with their claws and mandibles clicking, the humans were ready. The sound of gunfire echoed through the trees. Vraken drones charged at the Marines, but concentrated fire dropped them before they could close the distance. The aliens were fast and fierce, but Marines fought as a coordinated unit, covering each other and never giving the enemy an opening. One particularly large Vraken, bigger than the others, broke through the line and charged straight at Danny. He switched his rifle to full automatic and held down the trigger. Bullets stitched across the creature's body, finding weak points in its armor. It fell just meters away, sliding to a stop at his feet. "These things don't quit," Danny muttered. "Neither do we," Lisa replied. "Keep moving. We need to push them away from the colony." The Marines advanced steadily, clearing the forest of Vraken one encounter at a time. It was hard, dangerous work, but they never wavered. Back in orbit, Captain Helena faced her own challenges. The main Vraken force was trying a new tactic, sending their largest carriers to tank damage while smaller ships slipped past. "They're learning," Marcus observed, "adapting to our tactics." "Then we adapt faster," Helena said. "Redirect all fire to the carriers. If we kill those, the smaller ships lose coordination." The Valkyrie and her sister ships focused their railguns on the massive Vraken carriers. These bioships were enormous, capable of absorbing tremendous punishment. But sustained fire from multiple ships eventually overwhelmed even their impressive defenses. One carrier broke apart, its organic structure unable to handle the kinetic impacts. Then another. The smaller Vraken ships, suddenly without direction from the carriers, became confused and disorganized. "Now we've got them," Helena said with satisfaction. "All ships free engagement. Hunt them down." The human destroyers broke formation and became individual hunters, chasing down Vraken ships and destroying them. What had been a coordinated swarm became a scattered mess. Hours passed. Slowly, methodically, the humans eliminated every Vraken presence in the system. In space, the bioships were destroyed or driven off. On the ground, the Marines cleared the last pockets of resistance. When it was finally over, Helena took a shuttle